The formation of the Axis had set the stage for action, and Germany moved first. In the early hours of September 1939, panzer columns rolled across the Polish frontier, supported by waves of Stuka dive bombers that screamed down on rail junctions and troop concentrations. The old methods of static defense collapsed within days. Polish cavalry charges met machine gun fire and armored vehicles that simply outran them. By the end of the month, Warsaw had fallen, and the Soviet Union, honoring its secret pact, claimed its own share of the spoils in the east. The victory revealed a new pattern of war. German commanders coordinated infantry, tanks, and air power in concentrated thrusts rather than spreading forces evenly across a front. Radio allowed forward units to call for immediate air support or artillery shifts. Supply columns followed close behind the spearheads, keeping the momentum alive. European observers watched the footage and spoke of Blitzkrieg, a lightning war that seemed to erase the memory of the trenches from 20 years earlier. Italy watched with envy and calculation. Mussolini had promised his people a new Roman Empire, yet his forces were still rebuilding after the conquest of Ethiopia. For the moment, he contented himself with declarations of non-belligerence while German arms proved what coordinated speed could achieve. Japanese leaders, already deep in China, took note as well. They saw how a single decisive campaign could redraw maps before opponents finished mobilizing. The next test came in the West. In April 1940, German troops occupied Denmark in a single day and launched airborne assaults on key Norwegian ports. British and French expeditionary forces arrived too late and too scattered to reverse the outcome. The Royal Navy inflicted losses on the German fleet, yet the strategic prize, control of the North Sea approaches, remained in Axis hands. Then came the assault on the Low Countries in France. On 10 May, gliders and paratroopers seized the Belgian fortress of Eben-Emael in hours, opening a corridor for armored divisions. French and British armies, still organized around the lessons of 1918, shifted northward to meet what they expected to be a repeat of the Schlieffen Plan. Instead, the main German thrust cut through the Ardennes, a sector their own commanders had dismissed as impassable to tanks. Panzer groups emerged behind the Allied line, racing to the Channel coast and trapping hundreds of thousands of soldiers in a shrinking pocket around Dunkirk. The evacuation that followed saved men but not equipment. French armies, now fighting alone on their own soil, could not hold the new defensive lines hastily drawn along the Somme and Aisne. Paris fell in mid-June. Marshal Pétain asked for terms, and an armistice was signed in the same railway carriage where Germany had surrendered in 1918. Hitler allowed himself a brief visit to the empty French capital, standing before the Eiffel Tower while newsreels captured the moment for audiences back home. Axis leaders celebrated the sequence of victories as proof that history favored the bold. In Berlin, Goebbels' propaganda ministry broadcast images of cheering crowds and captured equipment parks stretching for miles. Mussolini, sensing the tide, declared war on France and Britain just before the armistice was complete, hoping to claim a seat at the victory table with minimal risk. In Tokyo, planners studied the German operational manuals and began adjusting their own timetables for expansion southward. Yet even in triumph, the costs accumulated. The Luftwaffe had lost hundreds of aircraft over France, and the Navy still lacked the heavy units needed to contest British sea lanes. The conquered territories required garrisons and administrators that drained manpower from future offensives. For the moment, however, the momentum belonged to the Axis. Entire nations had been overturned in weeks rather than years, and the old balance of power on the continent lay in ruins. The path chosen in 1936 now carried Germany, Italy, and Japan deeper into a conflict whose end no one could yet foresee.